Q&A with Christophe.
Q&A with Christophe.
Q&A with Christophe.
Well, still out of my kitchen because, well, there were a few questions coming, so I answered several questions on the same day. This one's kind of interesting and funny. Which of your books do you prefer and why? The question's from Jennifer, she's from the US. Well, they're all my babies, so I love them all the same. But let me explain maybe a little bit about the differences. The first one, so Future Harvest. I like this one. I like the way I structured it, organizing it around 6 chapters that I've named after simple. So the S for sustainability, I for innovation, M for market, P for pragmatism, L for leadership, and E for efficiency. Because it presents a lot of facts, a lot of information. It's quite dense, maybe too dense sometimes, I don't know. But what I like about it, it presents really an overview of all the issues toward the future of food. And I wrote it in 2009 and published it in 2010, so it's almost 15 years old. But it's still very relevant, so that's one of the things I like about it. And by then, really, I had built it and published it. My idea was really that it would be my business card, and it really fulfilled that purpose because that's what brought me a lot of business, and 15 years later I'm still here. Yeah, I really like this one. It's very factual, but maybe I found a little too monodimensional in the fact that in the sense that it's really mostly about facts. There is a little bit of reflection, but not as much. And actually I missed that, so that's why I published the second one, which was, we will reap what we sow, which and the subtitle is Reflections on Human Nature, Leadership and Feeding a Growing Population, because I realized that the limiting factor is not so much the technology, it's not the technical aspects. The limiting factors, well, there are 2 limiting factors. One is, of course, when you talk about technology, it has to be financially effective and efficient. If the numbers and if the economy of it don't work, then the technology is not going to be used that much. But the main limiting factor, in my opinion, is human nature and leadership. Let's face it, we're a fantastic brain, but it tends to kind of make our perception of the world very subjective. We don't always make decisions based on rational aspects. If we were rational on everything, well, I can tell you it would be a much better world. If we were rational on food and nutrition, well, there would not be any obesity or any disease because we would eat exactly what we need, and we don't. And the same thing with all the consumer goods and all the way we interact with world, with our economy, with others, with everything. So I found this one was interesting because it's a little bit more philosophical, mildly political, but not so much. But what I like about it, it's really it's very thought-provoking. It really makes you think about all those human aspects, the fact that we're human and we have all those qualities, but also all those flaws, is going to affect the decisions we make. It's going to affect how we move forward. And well, like the cover shows it, depending on if we make good decisions or not, well, we might end up having a prosperous and thriving world, or we can have a disaster. And in those days of climate change really hitting us more and more, it's very clear that this is a very relevant question. So I published this one in 2012. I really like it. I really like this one because I think it really makes you think, forces you to think, also makes you realize that what are the possibilities, but also the limitations. So yeah, I really like this one personally. And the third one that I published in 2021 is a different kind. So down to earth, and there is also the French version, Vers de Terre. So that's a book of poetry, and well, down to earth to me has a very special meaning because I wrote it. What triggered it really was the death of a dear friend, and who used to be working with me in my team. And I don't know, I wrote a poem about him, and I need to write more. And I thought, hey, I was also looking for a different way of presenting the narrative about food and agriculture, and those 2 elements just collided and merged. And then that's how I wrote this whole book in poetry form, but about food and agriculture, And I talk about, I present poems that are kind of old-fashioned, very, romantic idea of agriculture, but I also talk about a lot of very current issues like, protein, meat consumption, sustainability, the divide and the disconnection with nature, the divide between urban and rural, high techs. I talk about little robots, about artificial intelligence and all those things in there. By then nobody was talking about artificial intelligence, but it's all in here too. And I found a way of presenting a different narrative in a different form, which I think is very useful because depending on who reads it, they can find all sorts of things that interest them. And I can see it also as a great tool, as a more educational tool. Not to tell you that's how you should look at things, but just to make you think, because that's what I do. I love to make people think, and I like them to also come to their own conclusions. I'm not the kind of guy who's going to tell you what you should think. That's why I'll never be an influencer, and I don't need to. So yeah, these are the three books. So for very different reasons, I really like them all. They serve different purposes. And I also think that, they're also very entertaining, so that's it.
If you're interested in my videos, please click on the subscribe button, or you can also visit my website.